The palace of the Valorian Empire stood like a mountain of white crystal under three pale moons. Its towers reached so high that clouds wrapped around them like silk ribbons. Inside those walls lived the most powerful beings in the known galaxy. They were tall, beautiful, and cold. Their skins shimmered like pearl, and their eyes held the weight of 10,000 years. The Valorians were immortal. They had conquered 100 worlds and ruled them all with quiet, ancient power. Kang Te-ho was not one of them. He was human. He stood at the outer gate of the palace, dressed in simple guard armor that did not fit him well. The night air was cold, but he did not complain. Humans never complained here. They were not important enough to complain. Te-ho had come from Earth 5 years ago. His home planet was a small blue world on the edge of the galaxy. When the Valorians found Earth, they did not destroy it. They simply looked at the humans, studied them for a few days, and then shrugged. Humans were weak. They lived for less than 100 years. They could not survive in space without machines. They had no special powers. The Valorians added Earth to their empire the way someone might add a small stone to a large garden. It was there, but it did not matter. Now humans worked across the empire in small jobs. They cleaned. They carried things. They guarded empty hallways that no one cared about. Tai-ho was one of these guards. Every day, Valorian nobles walked past him without seeing him. Their cold eyes moved over him like he was part of the wall. Sometimes they whispered to each other in their ancient language. And Tai-ho knew they were talking about how strange humans looked, how warm their skin was, how quickly they aged and died. To the Valorians, humans were like flowers that bloomed in the morning and died by night. Pretty perhaps, but not worth remembering. Tai-ho did not let this hurt him. He had learned to keep his feelings deep inside his chest, where no one could see them. He did his job. He stood straight. He watched the empty corridor and waited for his shift to end. His only friend in the palace was a woman named Kim Soo-jin. She was also human, working as a medic in the lower levels of the palace. Every few days, they would meet in a small room near the kitchens and share a meal together. Soo-jin had a kind face and sad eyes. She missed Earth. She missed the smell of rain and the sound of birds in the morning. "Do you ever think about going home?" she asked him one evening. Tai-ho shook his head slowly. "There is nothing for me there. At least here, I have purpose." Soo-jin laughed softly, but there was no joy in it. "Purpose? We are invisible here, Tai-ho. We are ghosts." He did not argue with her. He knew she was right. But still, he woke up every morning and put on his armor. Still, he stood at his post and did his duty. It was all he knew how to do. One night, everything changed. Tai-ho was walking through a corridor on the eastern side of the palace. This area was supposed to be empty at this hour. The nobles were attending a ceremony in the Great Hall, and the servants had all gone to their quarters. But as Tai-ho turned a corner, he saw something that made him stop. A small figure stood alone in the middle of the hallway. It was a child, a Valorian child, with silver hair that fell to her shoulders and large eyes the color of frozen lakes. She wore a white dress made of fabric that seemed to glow softly in the dim light. She looked lost. Tai-ho recognized her immediately. Everyone in the palace knew her face. She was Princess Vessa, the only daughter of Queen Alara. She was the heir to the entire Valorian Empire, and she was standing alone in a restricted corridor, far from her guards. Tai-ho's heart beat faster. He should not be here. He should not be anywhere near the princess. If someone saw him with her, they might think he was trying to hurt her. They might kill him without asking questions. But he could not leave a child alone in the dark. He walked toward her slowly, keeping his hands visible at his sides. "Your Highness," he said softly. "Are you lost?" The princess looked up at him. Her eyes were wide with curiosity, not fear. She studied his face for a long moment. "You are human," she said. Her voice was like the sound of small bells. "Yes, Your Highness." "Why is your skin that color? Why are you so warm?" She reached out and touched his hand. Her fingers were cold, like touching smooth ice. "Oh," she whispered, "you feel like sunlight." Tai-ho did not know what to say. No Valorian had ever touched him before. No Valorian had ever looked at him with anything but cold distance. "Your Highness, I should take you back to your guards. They must be worried about you." The princess shook her head. I do not want to go back. The ceremony is boring. Everyone talks about things that happened 1,000 years ago. I wanted to explore. She looked up at him again. What is your name? Kang Tai Ho, Your Highness. Tai Ho, she repeated, testing the sound. That is a strange name. I like it. He could not help but smile. Despite everything, despite all the fear in his chest, he smiled at this small girl who looked at him like he was something interesting instead of something worthless. Come, he said gently. I will walk with you back to the ceremony. But we must be careful. If the wrong person sees us, I will be in trouble. I will protect you, the princess said seriously. I am the princess. No one can hurt you if I say no. Teho felt something warm spread through his chest. It was a feeling he had not felt in a long time. It was hope. He walked with her through the quiet corridors, telling her about the route he was taking. She asked him questions about humans. Why did they need to eat so often? Why did they sleep every night? Why did they die so quickly? He answered her questions as best he could, and when they reached the Great Hall, he stepped back into the shadows and watched her run to her attendants. She looked back once and waved at him. Then she disappeared inside. Teho stood there for a long moment, his heart still beating fast. He did not know that someone else had been watching. High above, on a balcony wrapped in shadow, Queen Alara stood in silence. Her ancient eyes had seen everything. She had watched her daughter touch the human's hand. She had watched her daughter smile. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the queen felt something stir inside her cold heart. She did not know what it was yet, but she would remember this human. She would remember his gentleness with her child. She would remember his warmth. After that night, Princess Vesa began to look for Taiho. At first, it happened by accident. She would escape from her tutors and wander through the palace, and somehow she always found her way to the eastern corridor where he stood guard. She would appear around a corner with her silver hair messy and her dress wrinkled from climbing through windows. And she would smile when she saw him, like he was an old friend she had been searching for. Taiho knew this was dangerous. He was nobody. She was the future of an entire empire. If the wrong person saw them together, he would lose more than his job. He would lose his life. But every time he saw her small face light up with joy, he could not send her away. Tell me about Earth, she said one afternoon. They were sitting in a small garden at the edge of the palace. This place was abandoned, full of strange plants that had stopped flowering long ago. No one came here. It was safe. What do you want to know, Your Highness? Everything. She pulled her knees up to her chest and looked at him with those pale eyes. I have read about Earth in the archives, but the books only talk about numbers. How many humans there are, how much water you have, how weak your bodies are. She frowned. I want to know what it feels like to live there. Teho thought for a moment. It had been so long since he had talked about home. The memories felt distant, like dreams he had almost forgotten. Earth has seasons, he began. The world changes throughout the year. In spring, flowers bloom everywhere. The air smells sweet, and everything feels new. In summer, the days are long and hot. Children play outside until the stars come out. In autumn, the leaves on the trees turn red and gold and fall to the ground like rain. And in winter, snow covers everything in white silence. Vesa listened with her mouth slightly open. The world changes? Everything here stays the same. It has been the same for 10,000 years. That is the human way, Teho said softly. Nothing lasts forever for us. Everything changes. Everything ends. Is that not sad? He smiled. Sometimes, but it also makes everything more precious. A flower is beautiful because it will not bloom forever. A day is special because there are only so many days in a life. We learn to love things more because we know we will lose them. The princess was quiet for a long time. Her eyes were thoughtful, like she was trying to understand something very difficult. Valorians live forever, she said finally, but I have never heard anyone talk about love the way you do. I have never heard anyone talk about flowers like they matter. Perhaps that is because you have too much time, Teho said. When you have forever, nothing feels urgent, nothing feels precious, but when you only have a few years, every moment becomes a treasure. Vesa reached out and touched his hand again, her cold fingers wrapped around his warm ones. I think I understand, she whispered. You love harder because you die sooner. That is beautiful and terrible at the same time. Taeho felt his throat grow tight. This child, this princess who would one day rule the stars, understood something that many humans never learned. She understood the gift hidden inside the curse of mortality. Their meetings continued through the following weeks. Vesa would find him, and they would talk. He told her about his mother, who had worked in a small restaurant in a city called Seoul. He told her about his father, who had been a soldier and taught him how to fight. He told her about the smell of food cooking in the morning and the sound of rain on a window at night. "Your parents," Vesa said one day. "Where are they now?" "They died," Taeho replied. His voice was calm, but his heart ached. "My father died in a war when I was young. My mother died of sickness a few years later. That is why I came here. There was nothing left for me on Earth." Vesa's eyes filled with tears. Taeho had never seen a Valorian cry before. He did not even know they could cry. "That is so sad," she said, "to lose everyone you love." "It is the human way," he said. "We are born, we love, we lose, and we die. But the love does not disappear. I still carry my parents in my heart. They are still with me, even though they are gone. That is what makes humans strong. We know how to hold on to things that we cannot see anymore." The princess wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I want to be strong like that," she said. "I want to love things the way humans do." Word of their friendship spread through the palace like poison in water. The servants whispered, the nobles frowned, and High Commander Dorek, the leader of the Queen's military forces, grew angry. Dorek was a tall Valorian with eyes like black ice. He had served the Empire for 8,000 years. He believed in tradition, he believed in order. And he believed that humans were little more than clever animals who should know their place. He went to Queen Ilara with fire in his voice. "Your Majesty, the human guard has been meeting with the princess in secret. This is not acceptable. He is filling her head with strange ideas. He is making her soft." Queen Ilara sat on her throne and listened without expression. Her face was like carved stone, beautiful and cold. "What would you have me do, Commander?" "Remove him, send him to the outer colonies, or execute him. He is just a human. No one will care." The queen was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke, and her voice was like winter wind. "I have been watching this human, Commander. I have seen how he treats my daughter. He is gentle with her. He is kind. He teaches her things that no Valorian has ever taught her." Dorek's face twisted with disgust. "He teaches her weakness." "No?" The queen stood, and the entire room seemed to grow colder. "He teaches her warmth, something our people forgot long ago." She walked down the steps of her throne until she stood before Dorek. "I will not remove him. I will promote him. From this day forward, the human Kang Tai-ho will serve as the princess's personal guard." Dorek's eyes went wide. "Your Majesty, this is madness. You would trust your daughter's life to a creature that will be dead in 50 years? I would trust her life to someone who values life precisely because it is short." The queen turned away. "The decision is made. Speak of this again, and you will learn what it means to question your queen." Dorek bowed stiffly and left the throne room, but his eyes burned with hatred. He would not forget this insult. He would not forgive it. When Tai-ho received the news of his promotion, he stood in shock for a full minute. Su-jin had to repeat it 3 times before he believed her. "Personal guard to the princess," she said, shaking her head in wonder. "Tai-ho, do you understand what this means? No human has ever held such a position. You will be making history." "I will be making enemies," he replied quietly. "Every noble in the palace will want me dead." "Then you must not die." Su-jin gripped his arm. "Whatever happens, you must not die. Because if you survive, if you succeed, it will change everything for our people. It will prove that humans can be more than servants and shadows." Taeho looked toward the palace's upper levels, where the princess's chambers waited for him. He thought about her small hand in his. He thought about her tears when he told her about his parents. He thought about her wish to love things the way humans do. "I will protect her," he said, "no matter what happens. I will protect her until my last breath." He did not know how soon that promise would be tested. 3 months passed. Taiho walked beside Princess Vesa through the halls of the palace, and slowly the stares of hatred became something he could ignore. He wore new armor now, black and silver, marked with the royal symbol. He carried a blade made of Valorian steel, sharper than anything from Earth. But inside he was still the same man, still human, still warm in a world of ice. Vesa had grown taller in these months. She was young by Valorian standards, barely past her first century, which made her like a child of 8 or 9 in human years. But she was smart, and her heart was bigger than anyone knew. She treated Taiho not like a servant, but like family. When she was scared of the dark, she held his hand. When she had bad dreams, she called for him before anyone else. The other guards did not like this. They watched Taiho with cold eyes and whispered behind his back. But they could not touch him. The queen had given her protection, and her word was law. On the night of the Sacred Fire Festival, the palace was full of light and sound. This was the most important celebration of the year, when the Valorians honored their ancestors with song and flame. Every noble family attended. Every soldier stood guard. The great hall blazed with thousands of floating lights that moved like living stars. Taiho stood near the back of the hall, watching the crowd. He had learned to read Valorian faces, to see the emotions they tried to hide. Tonight, something felt wrong. There was a tension in the air, like the moment before a storm. Some of the nobles moved too quickly. Some of the servants kept looking at the doors. He touched the handle of his blade and stayed alert. Princess Vesa was on the main platform with her mother. She wore a dress of deep blue that made her silver hair shine like moonlight. She looked bored, as she always did at these events. Her eyes kept searching the crowd until they found Taiho. She smiled at him, and he gave her a small nod. Then the lights went out. It happened all at once. Like a giant hand had crushed every flame in the room. The hall fell into complete darkness. For one heartbeat, there was silence. Then the screaming began. Taiho moved before he could think. He pushed through the crowd, his eyes struggling to see in the blackness. He heard the sound of weapons clashing. He heard bodies falling. He heard voices shouting words he did not understand. "Vesa!" he called out. "Your Highness!" He reached the platform, but she was gone. The queen was surrounded by her elite guards, fighting shadows that moved like smoke. But the princess was not with them. "Where is she?" Taiho grabbed one of the guards. "Where is the princess?" The guard's face was pale with fear. "They took her. The rebels took her toward the eastern gardens." Taiho did not wait. He ran. The eastern gardens were dark and silent. The plants here had been shaped into strange forms by Valorian artists, twisted trees and flowers made of glass. Taiho moved between them, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. His blade was in his hand. His breath came fast and sharp. He found them in a pavilion at the center of the garden. Vesa was on the ground, her dress torn, her face wet with tears. Standing over her was a creature that made Taiho's blood turn cold. It was tall, taller than any Valorian, with skin the color of dark stone and 4 arms that ended in claws. In 2 of its hands, it held blades that glowed with sick green light. The creature turned when it heard Taiho approach. Its mouth split into a smile full of sharp teeth. "A human," it said. Its voice was like rocks grinding together. "They sent a human to stop me." Taiho stepped into the pavilion. His legs were shaking, but he did not stop. He placed himself between the creature and Vesa. "You will not touch her." The creature laughed. It was an ugly sound full of hate. "Little human, do you know what I am? I have killed thousands. I have broken worlds. And you think you can stop me with that tiny blade? I do not need to stop you forever." Taiho raised his sword. "I only need to stop you long enough." The creature attacked. It moved faster than anything Taiho had ever seen. The first blow nearly took his head off. He ducked, rolled, came up swinging. His blade cut across the creature's arm, drawing a line of black blood. The creature hissed in surprise. "You are fast for a human." Taiho did not answer. He attacked again, driving forward with everything he had. He knew he could not win. The creature was stronger, faster, and had twice as many arms. But he did not need to win. He only needed to keep it busy. He only needed to give Vesa time. The creature's blade caught his shoulder, cutting deep. Taiho gasped but did not fall. Another blow hit his leg and he felt bone crack. He stumbled, caught himself, kept fighting. Blood was running down his face now. His vision was getting dark around the edges. Every breath hurt like fire. But behind him, he could hear Vesa crawling away, crying, calling for help. She was moving toward the palace. She was escaping. Good, he thought. Good. The creature grabbed him by the throat and lifted him off the ground. Its claws dug into his skin. Foolish little human. You die for nothing. Teho looked into the creature's eyes. He thought about his mother's face. He thought about his father's hands teaching him to hold a sword. He thought about Vesa's small fingers wrapped around his own, seeking warmth in a cold world. Not nothing, he whispered. He drove his blade into the creature's chest. The creature's eyes went wide. It dropped Teho and stumbled backward, clawing at the sword buried in its heart. Black blood poured from the wound. It tried to speak, but only a gurgling sound came out. Then it fell, and it did not get up again. Teho lay on the cold stone floor. He could not feel his legs anymore. His blood was spreading in a dark pool beneath him. The world was fading, going gray and soft at the edges. He heard footsteps, small footsteps, running toward him. Teho! Teho! Vesa's face appeared above him. Her cheeks were streaked with tears. Her hands pressed against his wounds, trying to stop the bleeding. No, 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 please! You cannot die! Please! You are safe, he said. His voice was barely a whisper. That is all that matters. I do not care. She was sobbing now, her whole body shaking. I do not want to be safe if you are dead. Please, Teho, please do not leave me. He wanted to comfort her. He wanted to tell her that everything would be all right. But his eyes were closing, and the darkness was rising up to meet him. I am sorry, he breathed. I am sorry I could not stay longer. The last thing he felt was her cold hands on his face, holding on to him like she could keep him alive through sheer will alone. Then everything went black. Vesa screamed. She screamed until her throat was raw, until the guards came running, until the whole garden was full of people and noise and chaos. She held on to Teho's body and refused to let go. She did not see her mother arrive. She did not see the queen push through the crowd and stop at the edge of the pavilion. She did not see the look on Queen Alara's face as she stared at the human who had saved her daughter's life. But everyone else saw it. They saw something change in the queen's eyes. Something ancient and powerful woke up behind that cold, perfect face. And when she spoke, her voice carried across the entire garden like a command from the gods themselves. He will not die. No one dared to argue, no one dared to breathe. The queen had spoken, and what she spoke became law. The healers worked through the night. The medical chamber was filled with machines that hummed and glowed, devices that could repair wounds that would kill any normal being. But Teho was not a normal being. He was human, and humans were not built to survive what he had suffered. The chief healer, an ancient Valorian named Sereth, stood before Queen Alara with his head bowed. His hands were stained with red human blood. His face was tired and gray. Your Majesty, he said quietly, there is nothing more we can do. His organs are failing. He has lost too much blood. His bones are broken in 17 places. Even with our best technology, a human body cannot recover from this kind of damage. He will be dead before morning. Queen Alara stood at the window, looking out at the stars. Her face showed nothing. Her voice was calm. I did not ask for your opinion on what is possible. I told you he will not die. Your Majesty, I do not understand. He is just a human. They are fragile creatures. This is their nature. We cannot change what they are. The queen turned. Her eyes were like white fire. I have lived for 10,000 years. I have watched empires rise and fall. I have seen stars die and be born again. In all that time, I have never seen one of my own people do what this human did tonight. She walked toward the healer, each step slow and measured. My guards ran. My elite soldiers fled. They have trained for centuries. They have weapons that can destroy cities. And when the moment came, they were not there. But this human, this fragile, short-lived creature, stood alone against an assassin bred for war. He took wounds that would have killed any Valorian instantly, and he did not stop. He did not run. He fought until the assassin fell, and he protected my daughter with his own dying body." Sarah's face had gone pale. "Your Majesty, I meant no disrespect." "Then stop telling me what is impossible." The Queen's voice dropped to a whisper, but somehow it seemed louder than a shout. "Find a way to save him, or I will find someone who can." The healer bowed deeply and hurried away. Queen Alara walked to the door of the medical chamber and looked inside. Tai-Ho lay on a white table, surrounded by tubes and wires. His body was broken, held together only by the machines. His face was peaceful, like he was sleeping. But the monitors showed the truth. His heart was barely beating. His brain was going dark. Beside the table, Princess Vesa sat on a small chair. She had refused to leave. Her dress was still stained with blood. Her eyes were swollen from crying. She held Tai-Ho's hand in both of her own, pressing it against her cheek. "Please wake up," she whispered. "Please, I will be good. I will never complain about boring ceremonies again. Just please wake up." The Queen felt something crack inside her chest. She had not felt anything like this for thousands of years. She had thought her heart was made of stone, cold and hard and unbreakable. But watching her daughter beg for the life of a dying human, she realized she was wrong. She still had a heart, and it was breaking. She walked into the room and knelt beside her daughter. Vesa looked up, her eyes filled with desperate hope. "Mother, can you save him? You can do anything. Please. Please save him." The Queen touched her daughter's face gently. "There may be a way, but it has never been done before. It will cost me greatly, and some will call it madness." "I do not care." Vesa gripped her mother's arm. "Whatever it takes, please." The Queen stood and looked at Tai-Ho's broken body. She thought about what she was considering. The life-bonding ritual was the most sacred ceremony in Valorian culture. It allowed one Valorian to share their life force with another, binding their souls together. It was used only between members of the royal family. It was considered holy. To use it on a human, on a lesser species, would be the greatest scandal in the Empire's history. But as she looked at this man who had given everything for her child, she realized she did not care about scandal. She did not care about tradition. She only cared about the truth. The truth was that Kang Tai-Ho was more worthy of honor than any Valorian she had ever known. "Summon the High Council," she said. "I will perform the life-bonding ritual." Word spread through the palace like wildfire. By midnight, every noble in the Empire knew what the Queen intended to do. The reactions were immediate and violent. High Commander Dorek burst into the throne room with fire in his eyes. "Your Majesty, this cannot happen. The life-bonding ritual is sacred. It has been performed only 13 times in 10,000 years, always between royals. To use it on a human is an insult to everything we are." "I disagree." The Queen sat on her throne, calm as still water. "To use it on this human is to honor everything we should be." "He is an animal," Dorek's voice echoed through the hall. "He will live for a few more decades and then die anyway. You would sacrifice part of your own immortal soul for a creature that is barely more than a pet?" The Queen rose from her throne. The air in the room grew cold. The guards took a step back, their faces pale with fear. "Let me tell you what that pet did tonight, Commander." Her voice was soft, but every word cut like a blade. "When your soldiers ran, he stood his ground. When the assassin attacked, he put his body between my daughter and death. He took wounds that would have killed you or me, and with his last strength, he destroyed the enemy that threatened the heir to this empire." She walked down the steps until she stood directly in front of Dorek. He was taller than her, but somehow he seemed small. "What did you do, Commander? Where were you when my daughter was screaming for help?" Dorek's face twisted with shame and anger. "I was coordinating the defense. You were safe." The Queen's eyes were merciless. "You were far from danger, giving orders to soldiers who were also far from danger. And while you were being safe, a human was dying to protect your princess." She turned away from him, dismissing him without another word. "The ritual will be performed at dawn. Anyone who wishes to object may leave the Empire tonight. I will not stop you. But if you stay, you will accept what I do. You will honor this human as the hero he is, and you will never speak of this matter again." The hall was silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Queen Alara returned to her throne and sat down. "Now leave me. I must prepare." The nobles filed out of the room in silence. But as Dorek left, he looked back at the queen with eyes full of cold hatred. This was not over for him. This would never be over. In the medical chamber, Vesa still held Teho's hand. She felt his pulse growing weaker, slower. She pressed her forehead against his fingers and prayed to gods she did not believe in. "Hold on," she whispered. "Just a few more hours. Mother is coming. She will save you. Just hold on." His heart beat once, twice, 3 times. The monitors beeped their warning. Time was running out, but dawn was coming, and with it came hope. The first light of dawn painted the sky in colors of gold and pink. In the highest tower of the palace, the Chamber of Souls had been prepared. This room had not been used in 500 years. Its walls were carved with ancient symbols that glowed faintly in the dim light. In the center stood 2 platforms, raised like altars, covered in white cloth. Teho lay on one platform, his body barely alive. The machines that kept his heart beating had been brought up the long stairs by 6 servants who struggled under their weight. His face was pale as paper. His chest rose and fell in shallow breaths. The healers said he had less than an hour left. Queen Alara entered the chamber wearing a simple white robe. She had removed her crown, her jewelry, all the symbols of her power. For this ritual, she was not a queen. She was simply a soul, offering part of herself to save another. Behind her came Princess Vesa, walking with the chief healer and 2 guards. Vesa's eyes were red and tired, but she refused to sleep. She had stayed awake all night, watching over Teho, counting his breaths like precious coins. Sujin was there too. She had begged to be allowed into the chamber, and the queen had permitted it. Now she stood in the corner, her hands clasped together, her lips moving in silent prayer. The queen walked to the second platform and lay down beside Teho. She turned her head to look at him, this human who had changed everything. His face was peaceful. His hand lay open at his side. She reached out and took it, feeling the fading warmth of his skin. "You fought for my daughter," she said softly. "Now I will fight for you." The chief healer stepped forward with trembling hands. "Your Majesty, are you certain? Once the ritual begins, it cannot be stopped. You will give away centuries of your own life. You will bind your soul to his. If he dies, part of you will die with him." "I understand. The pain will be unlike anything you have experienced. Even for an immortal, this ritual is... Begin." The healer bowed and stepped back. He raised his hands and began to speak in the ancient language of the Valorians. The words were old, older than the Empire itself, words that carried power in their sound. The symbols on the walls began to glow brighter, filling the chamber with white light. Queen Alara closed her eyes. She felt the ritual take hold, like invisible hands reaching into her chest. It was searching for her essence, the core of her immortal being, and it was beginning to pull. The pain hit her like a wave of fire. She gasped but did not scream. She gripped Teho's hand tighter and focused on his face. She thought about what he had done, the courage he had shown, the love he had given her daughter. She let these thoughts fill her mind as the ritual tore into her soul. Vesa watched with tears streaming down her face. She could see her mother suffering, see the way her body shook with pains she would not voice. But she could also see something else. A glow was forming between the 2 platforms, a bridge of light connecting the queen to the dying human. "It is working," the healer whispered. "The bond is forming." Inside the light, something was happening to Teho. Color was returning to his face. His breathing was growing stronger. The monitors showed his heart beating faster, steadier. The broken parts of him were beginning to heal, pulled back together by a force beyond medicine or science. But for every wound that healed on Teho's body, a shadow passed over the queen's face. She was growing pale, her perfect features aging in ways no Valorian should age. The cost of the ritual was real. She was giving him centuries of her own life, pouring her essence into his dying body, like water into an empty cup. Hours passed. The sun rose higher in the sky. The light in the chamber grew and grew until it was almost blinding. Sujin had to shield her eyes. Vesa fell to her knees, unable to look away. Then suddenly it was over. The light faded. The symbols on the walls went dark. The chamber fell into silence. The queen lay still on her platform, her eyes closed, her breathing shallow. She looked older than before. Not ancient, but changed. The ritual had taken something from her that could never be returned. But on the other platform, Tejo opened his eyes. He blinked at the ceiling, confused. He tried to move and found that he could. He lifted his hand and looked at it, turning it back and forth. The wounds were gone. The broken bones were healed. He felt strange, different, like something new was flowing through his veins. Tejo! Vesa rushed to his side and grabbed his hand. Her tears fell onto his skin. You are alive. You are alive. He looked at her, and his eyes were the same, still warm, still human, still full of gentle kindness. Your Highness, he said. His voice was rough but strong. What happened? Mother saved you. Vesa looked at the queen, who was slowly sitting up on her platform. She gave you part of her soul. Tejo turned to face the queen. Their eyes met, and he felt something pass between them. A connection, a bond. He could sense her presence in his mind, faint but real, like an echo of her heartbeat mixing with his own. Your Majesty, he said. He tried to bow, but his body was still weak. I do not understand. Why would you do this for me? I am nobody. Queen Alara rose from her platform. She walked to him slowly, each step careful and measured. She looked tired, but there was a light in her eyes that had not been there before. You are wrong, she said. You are someone. You are the man who saved my daughter when no one else could. You are the man who taught her what it means to love. You are the man who showed my entire empire that courage is not about living forever. It is about being willing to die for something precious. She reached out and touched his face, her cold fingers resting on his warm cheek. I did not save you because of duty. I saved you because you deserve to live. Because the galaxy needs more people like you. Because my daughter loves you, and I have learned that love is worth any sacrifice. Tejo felt tears forming in his eyes. He had not cried in years, not since his mother's funeral. But now the tears fell freely, running down his face without shame. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you. Vesa threw her arms around him, hugging him tight. Sujin rushed forward and joined the embrace, laughing and crying at the same time. And Queen Alara watched them, a small smile forming on her ancient lips. For the first time in 10,000 years, she felt like she had done something truly good. Not for the empire, not for power or politics or tradition, but for love. In the days that followed, Tejo slowly recovered his strength. He discovered that the ritual had changed him in ways beyond healing his wounds. His senses were sharper now. He could see farther, hear better, react faster than any human should. And he would live longer, much longer than a normal human lifespan. The bond with the queen had given him centuries instead of decades. But he was still human at his core. His heart still beat with human warmth. His soul still carried human emotion. He was something new, something the universe had never seen before. A human with the gift of time, but the fire of mortality still burning in his chest. News of the ritual spread across the empire like fire in dry grass. Within days, everyone knew. From the smallest colony to the greatest cities, Valorians spoke of nothing else. A queen had bonded her soul to a human. An immortal had shared her essence with a mortal. The order of the universe had been turned upside down. Some celebrated. In the lower levels of society where other species worked and served, there was joy. If a human could be honored by the queen herself, perhaps there was hope for all of them. Perhaps the old ways were finally changing. But in the great halls of power, there was anger. The noble families gathered in secret meetings, their cold eyes filled with outrage. This was not just a scandal. This was an attack on everything they believed. For 10,000 years, Valorians had stood above all other species. They were the masters of the galaxy, the chosen ones, the immortal rulers of creation. And now their queen had lowered herself to share her life with a creature they considered barely better than an animal. High Commander Dorek stood at the center of these meetings. His voice was poison, his words carefully chosen to turn confusion into hatred. The queen has lost her mind, he told a gathering of military officers. She has been bewitched by this human. He has somehow tricked her into believing he is worthy of honor. We must save her from herself. What do you suggest? One officer asked. She is still the queen. Her word is law. Laws can be changed. Dorek's eyes were hard as black stone. Queens can be replaced. If she cannot see reason, then perhaps it is time for new leadership. The officers exchanged nervous glances. What Dorek was suggesting was treason. But they were afraid. They were angry. And fear and anger together made men do terrible things. In the palace, Teho could feel the danger gathering like storm clouds on the horizon. His new senses allowed him to hear whispers from rooms away, to see the hatred in the eyes of nobles who pretended to smile. He knew he was not safe. More importantly, he knew the queen and the princess were not safe either. He went to Queen Alara with his concerns. She received him in her private chambers, a room filled with books and star maps and ancient artifacts. She looked stronger now than she had right after the ritual, but there was still a shadow in her eyes that had not been there before. "I know about Dorek," she said before he could speak. "I know about his meetings, his plots, his whispered treasons. I have ruled for 10,000 years, Teho. I have survived 17 assassination attempts and 3 civil wars. This is not my first time facing enemies within my own court." "Then why do you not act?" Teho asked. "Why do you let him gather support?" "Because I am waiting." The queen turned to face him, and her eyes were ancient and wise. "Dorek is a symptom, not a disease. The true problem is the belief that sits in the hearts of my people. They think humans are lesser beings. They think mortality makes you weak. Until I change that belief, there will always be another Dorek waiting to take his place." "How do you change a belief that is 10,000 years old?" The queen smiled, a small, tired smile. "By showing them they are wrong, again and again, until they cannot deny the truth anymore. That is why I saved you, Taiho. Not just because you deserve to live, but because your survival sends a message. A human can be worthy. A mortal can be brave. The old beliefs are built on lies." Teho bowed his head. "I understand, but I am afraid, Your Majesty, not for myself, for you, for the princess. Dorek is gathering an army. When he moves, it will be with overwhelming force. Then we must be ready to meet him." In the weeks that followed, Teho trained harder than he had ever trained before. The enhancement from the ritual had made him faster and stronger, but he was still learning the limits of his new abilities. He practiced with the palace guards, many of whom still hated him, but who followed the queen's orders without question. He studied Valorian combat techniques. He learned the layout of every corridor, every hidden passage, every defensive position in the palace. Sujin helped where she could. She had been promoted to chief medical officer of the palace, another sign that humans were rising in status. She kept him healthy, monitored the changes in his body, and listened to his fears when the nights grew long. "You cannot save everyone," she told him one evening. "You are one man, Teho. Even with your new gifts, you cannot stop an army." "I do not need to stop an army," he replied. "I only need to stop the people trying to hurt the princess. That is my job. That has always been my job." "And what about you? What about your own life?" He was quiet for a moment. Then he looked at her with eyes that were calm and clear. "I died once already, Sujin. The queen gave me a second life. Every day I have now is a gift. If I have to give that gift back to protect the people I love, then I will do it gladly." Sujin shook her head, but she did not argue. She knew there was no point. Taiho had always been stubborn. It was one of the things she loved about him. The Festival of Eternal Stars arrived 3 months later. This was the greatest celebration in the Valorian calendar, a night when the 3 moons aligned and the sky filled with ancient light. Every noble family would attend. Every soldier would be on duty. The palace would be full of thousands of people, all watching, all waiting. Taiho knew Dorek would strike during the festival. It was the perfect opportunity. The chaos of the celebration would provide cover. The queen would be exposed on the throne platform, visible to everyone. One well-placed attack, one moment of confusion, and everything could change. He tried to warn the queen, but she already knew. "I am aware of the danger," she said, "but I will not hide. If I show fear, I give Dorek power. I must stand before my people and let them see that I am not afraid." "Then let me stand with you." The queen looked at him for a long moment, then she nodded. "You have earned that right. Tomorrow night you will be at my side. Whatever comes, We will face it together. On the eve of the festival, Princess Vesa came to Tai Ho's quarters. She was taller now, older, her features sharpening toward the cold beauty of her people. But her eyes were still warm when she looked at him, filled with the same trust she had shown from the very beginning. "I am scared," she admitted. "I heard the servants talking. They say something bad will happen tomorrow." Taeho knelt so he could look at her face to face. "Something bad might happen. I will not lie to you about that. But I want you to remember something, Vesa. No matter what happens, I will protect you. I made a promise, and I will keep it. Do you believe me?" She nodded slowly. "I believe you." "Good." He stood and placed his hand on her shoulder. "Now go to sleep. Tomorrow will be a long day and you need your strength." She hugged him suddenly, wrapping her arms around his waist and pressing her face against his chest. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for being my friend." He held her gently, feeling the cold of her skin against his warmth. "Always," he said. "I will be your friend always." After she left, Taeho stood at his window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, the small blue world where he had been born. He wondered what his mother would think if she could see him now. He wondered if his father would be proud. He closed his eyes and made a final prayer to whatever gods might be listening. Then he went to sharpen his blade. Tomorrow the storm would break. The Festival of Eternal Stars began at sunset. The great hall of the palace blazed with light from 1,000 floating crystals. Music filled the air, ancient songs sung by voices that had practiced for centuries. Nobles in their finest robes moved through the crowd like colorful fish in a sea of silver and gold. The 3 moons hung in the sky outside, aligned perfectly, casting the world in pale, beautiful light. Queen Ilara sat on her throne at the head of the hall. She wore a gown of deep purple that seemed to hold the stars themselves in its fabric. Her crown gleamed on her silver hair. Her face was calm, serene, showing nothing of the danger she knew was coming. Beside her stood Taeho. He wore the black and silver armor of the royal guard, but everyone knew he was not just a guard anymore. He was the queen's champion, the bonded one, the human who had changed history. Some looked at him with wonder. Others looked at him with hatred. He ignored them all. His eyes moved constantly over the crowd, searching for danger. Princess Vesa sat on a smaller throne beside her mother. She was dressed in white, her silver hair braided with tiny crystals that caught the light. She looked beautiful and scared, her hands gripping the arms of her chair. Every few moments her eyes would find Taeho, and he would give her a small nod of reassurance. The first hours of the festival passed without incident. There were speeches and songs and dances. Food was served on plates of crystal. Wine flowed like water. The nobles laughed and talked and pretended that everything was normal. Taeho knew it was not normal. He could feel the tension in the air like electricity before a lightning strike. Something was wrong. Something was building. Then he saw them. Guards were moving through the crowd, but not in the usual patterns. They were forming groups near the exits. Their hands were near their weapons. Their eyes were fixed on the throne. Dorek's men. Taeho stepped closer to the queen and spoke in a low voice. "It is beginning. The exits are blocked. We are surrounded." Queen Ilara did not move, did not show any sign that she had heard him, but her voice came back to him, calm and clear. "I know. Hold your position. Wait for them to make the first move." The music stopped. The lights in the hall flickered once, twice, then steadied. A murmur ran through the crowd. Something was happening. High Commander Dorek stepped out of the crowd and walked toward the throne platform. He was dressed in full battle armor, his sword at his side, his face hard as carved stone. Behind him came 50 soldiers, all armed, all loyal to him. "Queen Ilara," he said, his voice carrying across the silent hall. "Your reign has gone on long enough. You have shamed our people. You have bonded with a human. You have forgotten what it means to be Valorian. Tonight, for the good of the Empire, I am removing you from power." No one moved. No one breathed. The hall was frozen in shock. The queen rose slowly from her throne. When she spoke, her voice was like ice. "You are committing treason, Commander. You know the punishment for this. The only treason here is yours." Dorek drew his sword. "You betrayed our blood by mixing it with a lesser species. You betrayed our traditions by raising a pet to a position of honor." You betrayed everything we are. I betrayed nothing. The queen's eyes burned with cold fire. I showed our people what they had forgotten. That courage is not about how long you live. That honor is not about what species you are. That the strongest heart can beat in the weakest body. She pointed at Tejo. This human did what none of you could do. He saved my daughter when your trained soldiers ran. He fought a monster with nothing but a blade and his own mortality. He is worth more than all of you combined. Dorek laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. Fine words from a queen who has lost her mind. Enough talk. Surrender now, or we will take you by force. Tejo stepped forward. His blade was in his hand. His heart was beating steady and strong. If you want the queen, you go through me first. Dorek looked at him with contempt. You, a human. I have killed thousands of warriors who were stronger, faster, and better than you in every way. What makes you think you can stop me? Tejo smiled. It was a sad smile, but there was no fear in it. You are right. You are stronger than me, faster than me. You will probably win, but I do not need to win. I just need to fight, because that is what humans do. We fight even when we know we will lose. We fight because there are things worth dying for. You have forgotten that. You have lived so long that nothing matters to you anymore. He raised his blade. Let me remind you what it feels like to face someone who has everything to lose. The battle began. Dorek's soldiers rushed forward, and Tejo met them head-on. His enhanced speed carried him through their ranks like a wind through grass. He cut down 2 soldiers before they could react. He blocked a blow from a third and kicked him backward into his companions. He moved with the desperate energy of a man who had already died once and was not afraid to die again. But there were too many of them. A blade caught his arm. Another sliced across his back. He stumbled, recovered, kept fighting. Blood ran down his face, but he did not stop. The queen's loyal guards joined the battle. The nobles screamed and ran for cover. The hall erupted into chaos, a storm of steel and shouting and death. Through it all, Tejo kept his eyes on one thing: Princess Vesa. She was still on the throne platform, protected by a circle of loyal guards. As long as she was safe, nothing else mattered. Dorek cut through the guards, blocking his path to the queen. He was a warrior of 8,000 years, and his skill was terrible to witness. No one could stand against him for more than a few seconds. He walked toward the throne like death itself, his blade dripping with the blood of those who had tried to stop him. Queen Ilara stood her ground. She had no weapon, no armor, but she did not run. Tejo saw what was happening. He was 50 meters away, surrounded by enemies, bleeding from a dozen wounds. Too far. He would never reach her in time, but he ran anyway. He pushed through the soldiers. Taking cuts he did not bother to block. He threw himself forward with every bit of strength he had. His vision was going dark. His legs were failing, but he kept running. Dorek raised his blade to strike the queen. Tejo threw himself between them. The sword meant for Queen Ilara cut deep into Tejo's chest. He gasped, felt the cold metal inside him, felt his blood pouring out, but he did not fall. He grabbed Dorek's arm with both hands and held on. "What are you doing?" Dorek tried to pull away, but Tejo would not let go. "You are already dead. Let go." Tejo looked up at him with eyes that still burned with human fire. "You ask me what makes humans special," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "This is what makes us special. We hold on, even when we are dying, even when there is no hope. We hold on because there is always something worth holding on for." With his last strength, he pulled Dorek toward him and drove his blade into the commander's heart. Dorek's eyes went wide with shock. He looked down at the sword in his chest, then back at the human who had put it there. "Impossible," he whispered. "You were already dead." "Humans are full of surprises," Tejo said. Dorek fell. Tejo collapsed beside him. The hall was spinning now, fading into gray. He could hear voices shouting, feet running, but it all seemed very far away. The only thing that mattered was the small hand that suddenly grabbed his. Vesa was there, kneeling beside him, tears streaming down her face. "No," she said. "No, not again. You promised. You promised you would protect me." He reached up with a trembling hand and touched her face. "I did protect you," he whispered. "I always will, even when I am gone." I will be there, in your heart. That is where humans go when they die. They live on in the hearts of people who love them. Queen Alara knelt on his other side. Her ancient eyes were wet with tears, something no one had ever seen before. Hold on, she said. I can heal you again. I can... No. Tejo shook his head weakly. You gave me a second life. That is enough. Use your strength for the Empire. For her. He looked at Vesa. She will be a great queen someday, better than anyone before her, because she knows what you forgot. She knows how to love. His eyes began to close. His breathing grew shallow. Tejo! Vesa's voice broke. Please, stay with me. He smiled one last time. I was never supposed to live this long. Every moment was a gift. And I spent it protecting the people I love. That is a good life. That is a good death. His hand fell from her face. His heart stopped. The hall fell silent. Queen Alara stood slowly, her robes stained with human blood. She looked out at the nobles, the soldiers, the servants who had watched everything. Her voice when she spoke was like thunder rolling across mountains. Look at him, she commanded. Look at this human who died for your princess. Look at this mortal man who fought when immortals ran. Look at this small, fragile creature who showed more courage than any of you will ever know. She raised her hand. From this day forward, humans will be honored throughout the Empire. They will serve beside Valorians as equals. And this man, Kang Tejo, will be remembered as the first shield of the Valorian throne. A title created for him alone. A title that will never be forgotten. Years passed, then decades, then centuries. Princess Vesa grew into Queen Vesa, the greatest ruler the Empire had ever known. She carried Tejo's lessons in her heart, the lessons of warmth and love and sacrifice. She changed the Empire, opened its doors to other species, taught her people that strength was not about living forever, but about living well. And on every anniversary of the Festival of Eternal Stars, she would visit a statue in the palace gardens. It showed a human man with kind eyes and a gentle smile, standing with his blade raised, forever ready to protect. She would place flowers at his feet, flowers that bloomed and died like humans did, and she would whisper the words he had taught her so long ago. Love harder, live fully. Hold on. The flame burns brief, but it lights up the darkness, and some flames never go out.